I wanted to put my Commander Excelsior UK hat on for a moment because we're coming to the end of 2020 and it's been a deeply rubbish year, let's face it. But I know that a lot of commanders are looking forward to the release of Elite Dangerous Odyssey, which is going to bring a whole different dimension to the game, it seems. I must confess, I haven't read a great deal about it up to this point. All I really know is it's got a sort of first-person shooter element to it, and that isn't what this video is about. My channel covers a range of different things depending on where my mood takes me. I have a lot of varied interests in science fiction and gaming, Lego, all that sort of good stuff. But I wanted to talk about Elite for a little while because I have a lot of history with Elite. And I'm doing this off the cuff. I normally just script these kind of musings and mutterings, but I've gone with a different idea this time, and I've done what someone suggested to me for something else. So I've just got a few words written down on a Word document just to sort of give me a path through. So let me begin by talking to you a little bit about my history with Elite and what's prompted me to record this love letter to Elite Dangerous. My history with Elite is a very, very long one. It's a very, very personal one. It starts in early 1980s, 1984 I think it was, when the original Elite came out. In black, white, I think red, yellow and green perhaps, on the BBC B, in my case. You loaded it off a tape, kids, which you had to get your tape recorder tuned just so that the computer would listen to it and get you all the way to the end of the loading process. And the Acorn Soft logo was there and all that sort of good stuff. And then you got put into this remarkable piece of software which somehow in 32 kilobytes of memory managed to hold the entire galaxy. And when it came out on disc, it then held 8 galaxies, and so it went on, ever expanding. And the actual sort of gameplay for the time was just remarkable because, as I understand it, was programmed in such a way that it only drew what it needed to draw for you to see. So in other words, it didn't try and do the backs of the ships, it only did the front of the ships and the elements that you could see in simple geometric patterns. And in doing it that way, it was able to show enemy ships moving around in 3D, but in such a way that it actually flowed. And these processors had zero power compared to even the most basic mobile phone today, and yet they managed to do it. And so you started off with a Cobra Mark III, and the default pilot name was Commander Jameson. And you started off with 100 credits, 3 missiles, a pulse laser, and that was probably pretty much your lot. A little bit of cargo space. And so the aim of the game was to work your way up from harmless to elite, if you ever got that far. I don't think I ever did on the original versions. And along the way, you would purchase commodities at a low price, sell them hopefully for a higher price if you can manage to battle your way through to another space station in another star system, having done a hyperspace jump. And you gradually increase your wealth, you improve your ship, and as you improve your ship, you can take on more enemies, kill more enemies, and gradually improve your combat rank towards your goal of becoming elite. And you've got to bear in mind here, all that was in these systems, these star systems, was a sun, a planet, and the space station that orbited the planet. And that was it. Everything else was empty space, apart from the odd pirate who you would encounter. And if you had an imaginative frame of mind, that was all you needed. Now, the version of Elite that I had came in a good sort of solid cardboard box, which meant that they had room to put a book in it. Yep, a book. So it came with a novella called The Dark Wheel. I think that's definitely what it was called. It's definitely what it was about. And what that did for those who were, who were readers, basically, it allowed them to immerse themselves in the universe through the book. And so when you approached the space station, your imagination was kicking off, even though it was a square with 4 triangles attached to the corners, effectively. Oh, and a rectangle in the middle for the mail slot, of course, that you had to get yourself into and rotate in alignment with, so you didn't scrape your ship into pieces trying to get in. And it, by rights it shouldn't have worked, but I think that all the little touches that go with it. So had the book not been in there, I don't know if I would have felt personally as strongly about the game as I came to. Because for me, it meant that every time I loaded up the game and I got into my Cobra and I went into space, I was a part of that universe. And that worked. And you had these sort of, cleverly sort of auto-generated sort of species and sort of things that planets were known for. All these little touches that just added that sense of depth to it. And it was all generated off, a little tape. So it was a real triumph. And here we are. You've got to think about this now. It's 36 years on. 36 years on. And we have a current version of what is essentially exactly the same principles on modern day consoles with infinitely more computing power. And people are still playing this. And I know from the sort of, the various YouTube videos that I watch and the extent to which I dip into the Elite Dangerous community, that there are a lot of people like me who played it way back when, who are still actively involved in this universe. And that's a hell of a tribute to Braben and Bell, who started it all off many, many decades ago now. The fact they've managed to keep this universe alive and active and thriving that long is brilliant. And, I've now got my son dabbling in it a little bit. He will occasionally, from time to time, go out in Elite Dangerous, and if he wants to fly with his friends, he can fly with his friends. That was never a thing for me. I used to talk to people at school about it, and I used to talk to people at university about it, but of course we never flew together at that point. You couldn't do that. So, for me, that is the sort of the history of the game for me, is that it was very much a part of my childhood and one of those games that really encouraged me to get into gaming as a whole, I think it's fair to say, because up until that point it had all been sort of very sort of 2D graphics, pretty sort of linear stuff, but this was a game where the goal was whatever you wanted it to be. If you just wanted to make shed loads of money, you could make shed loads of money. You didn't have to be elite combat rated. It generally followed, sure. But then the later versions of it started to be sort of slightly more mission orientated, so you could do missions if that was your thing. It just gave you options. It gave you choice, and it allowed your imagination to take over. And I think that's key in any game. If you can allow people with active imaginations to exercise their imaginations, I think that's what it's all about. And it does seem like a winning combination because it's still around. Otherwise, it would long since have crumbled into dust. So, I did play. I should mention, I suppose, that I did play the sequel to Elite, which was Frontier. I've played a few of the different iterations of Elite along the way, but Elite Frontier was the first one to go full on coloured in, Well, I say it was the first one. It might not have been quite the first one, but anyway, it was the first proper sequel to have sort of coloured in polygon ships and a variety of different space stations, and a different range of ships to the original game. Greatly expanded range of ships. A lot of the elements were still very similar, but then this time round you had sort of the Empire and the Federation had started to enter into it at that point, as I remember. There were far more missions. There were passenger missions. You could mine on the surface of planets. You could do sort of military missions involving bases, and taking photos of them, I think it was. All sorts of other sort of varied things that you could do. And you could buy more than just a Cobra for the first time. So you were able to fly different ships. And I think you started in an Eagle. So I didn't play Frontier First Encounters, so I wasn't familiar with the Thargoid storyline, and I'm still I kind of know what happened somewhat, but actually I've still got to visit Jameson Memorial. No, I'll tell a lie. I'll come back to that. I need to go and visit his Crashed Cobra. I haven't done that yet in the game. That's on my list of things to do. The next thing on my my little Q notes is what the hell? And this relates to my first experience of coming to the modern game, which I was sort of passingly aware of, but my laptop at the moment is pretty ancient. It's not really rigged for gaming, so I hadn't been gaming of late for a variety of reasons. But my son had got to that point where we finally had to cave in and get him an Xbox One in this instance. And so with that, of course, you have immediate access to shed loads of games, one of which I noticed was Elite Dangerous. Aha, thought I. Here's my opportunity to show the kid how it's done and teach him how to fly a Cobra. Won't this be fun? As it turned out, not quite so much, because a lot of fundamental things had changed. A lot of it was very, very familiar still, granted, but a lot of it had changed. So, for example, I got blown up, accidentally, sort of, quote, loitering, unquote, above a landing pad. I didn't know that was a thing. Boom went my little Sidewinder, and I started in a Sidewinder, which was immediately confusing for me, because I was expecting a sort of an Eagle or a Cobra Mark III, but it was neither of those. It was a Sidewinder. So, okay. They were in the original game, obviously not flyable because that wasn't a thing, but they were in Elite 84, so it was a traditional start from my point of view. So they're kind of like little mini Cobra Mark IIIs, so that was okay. But I soon discovered that heat was an issue. I accidentally turned on silent running, as I'm sure many a commander has, and wondered why my ship was suddenly on the verge of blowing itself up. If you go into silent running, you close your sort of heat sinks and your heat exchangers with the outside world, and so all of that heat that normally escapes gets redirected inside your ship and starts to cook you, medium rare. So that was the difference. Landing was very much like Frontier's landing, so you had to sort of lower landing gear, settle yourself down onto a pad and so on. But I can't remember if you had to. I don't think you could land in a station in Frontier. I think you flew into the mail slot and then that was it. You were sort of docked. But of course now you actually see your ship going properly inside a station onto a pad, and you have to land on the pad inside the station. Oh, woe betide you if, like me, you accidentally open your weapon's hardpoints instead of accelerating out of the station, as I once did, having got my my buttons modelled up, and then of course get blown to pieces again, having inadvertently tried to activate your weapons inside a station. I don't recommend it. Even more confusingly, I then got landed in a penal colony, light years from where I was before, and just wondering what on earth is going on. Where have I gone? Because I didn't respawn in the station I'd just been sat in. I got respawned in a penal colony. I think because I'd done something in a station, so it was considered quite a grave offence. So I got shunted out somewhere else completely different. And I was still trying to get to grips with the game. I think that the new player experience has changed a bit since I started it. I think it was a couple of years ago that I started it. And I'm just trying to get to grips with it. I was trying to get to grips with it, basically. And it was a steeper learning curve than I thought, basically, at the time. So I thought, okay, I'm going to keep giving it a go. And things like the frame shift drive was really confusing for me because I didn't understand the difference between a low waking and high waking. So a low wake is when you go into frame shift drive inside a system to travel around inside a system, which is different to the original again. And a high wake is when you actually do a conventional hyperspace jump, which for me was a completely different key back in the day. They were very clearly distinguished things, but now it's kind of they're all frame shift drive. It's just depends on what you're aiming yourself at the time. So there was a learning curve for me, and there's a lot more complexity now than there was before because there are guys and girls called engineers who can upgrade various equipment modules for you, but you have to unlock them first, and that involves doing missions in and of itself. So I'll tell you this little tale of something I was doing just last night, which is kind of what prompted me to do this in a sense, because I know that people complain about the grind. But to me, I think the grind is part and parcel of it. Elite has always been about grinding. If you wanted to get up to a decent rank, to have bragging rights, you had to put the time in. It's a time-intensive game. It's a time sink of a game. So I was trying to Twitch stream for Chuckles over the last couple of weeks just to see if I could do it on the Xbox so that my son could do it. And I was trying to do this, and I'd sort of resolved to unlock an engineer who lives in the Sirius system. To do that, I had to get a permit for the Sirius system to go into it in the first place, to go and get an invitation from a particular corporation, which was the only way to access him. So I did that. Logically, I figured out that you had to get allied status with the Sirius corporation. That gave you the Sirius permit. Went into the Sirius, and it turned out that just getting invited to him wasn't enough. I then had to go out and get things called modular terminals. And I thought, right, I think the galaxy map shows you where you can get various commodities from. I'll go and look at that and try and stay in game. There are lots of third-party tools for Elite Dangerous, which is terrific, vastly powerful thing to have at your fingertips because the game itself doesn't make it massively easy. So the game told me what I needed to unlock this guy. It didn't tell me where I could get them. It just doesn't do that. You've got to sort of put the legwork in yourself. So then I couldn't find these things that you wanted on the commodities market. I thought, okay, they're not alphabetical, but I'm pretty sure I've covered every single possible commodity that you can actually buy on the market or what's going on. So I went to Google, I did the Google search, mission rewards. You get modular terminals from missions, and I thought, yeah, I forgot about missions. I'd been out exploring near the Formidine Rift, which is part of the lore of the game. There are books, so like the original, like the novella for the original, there are books around the game which are official tie-in game books by a gentleman called Drew Wager, who's on YouTube, on Twitter. So go and search his stuff out if you're interested in the lore, and it expands on the previous lore of the games. So if you play the games from '84 onwards, the lore of the Elite universe is part and parcel of this game as it was for those games, and it's being built on from time to time in these modern games as well. So so it turned out that these things were only available through missions. So I was sort of going, because I just hadn't done many missions up to this point because I'd been out in the Rift. I'm now Exploration Elite, and that was one of my goals. I thought, I don't have a lot of time to play this game. If I take missions, I might not get a chance to finish them, and I'll get penalised for it. So what I thought I would do was do a little bit of exploration, and just get to the point where I could get exploration elite, and then I could say, yes, I finally done it. I finally, definitely, that I can remember, become elite in an elite game. Huzzah. Also gives you the benefit that you unlock the Founders World, which means you can get everything in one place at a discount. Brilliant. So I've got that now. Good. Tick in the box. I did explore a little bit further than I was anticipating. I didn't intend to go out as far as the Rift in my little under-engineered Aspect Explorer, but I did. Aspect Explorer, also an original craft from the original game, so that was nice. Worked out very well, very reasonably priced ship. If you want to go exploring, try one. There's also the Great Phantom, but for me, that was 5 times more expensive, and I didn't have the money, so I just went in the Aspect and went out. Learned a lot about exploring, learned a lot about how not to die, a little bit about how to die. But anyway, so that also got, and then a community goal popped up. Again, community goals didn't used to be a thing, because it didn't used to be a community, didn't used to be online. But anyway, community goal. I legged it back into the bubble, which is the core systems, and managed to sell my exploration data at a significant uplift of what I would normally have gotten for it. Ended up a billionaire. Very nice. Not actually that much cash in game in the universe, but makes me more than comfortable for doing what I want to do right now, which is great. So where did I go from there? So yeah, so I was trying to unlock this engineer, a little bit grindy, and I noticed that about the only mission that I could see that was going to give me any of the materials that I wanted to unlock this engineer was a combat mission. So I had seen my son try combat missions, albeit in a wholly ill-equipped ship, but I knew they could be pretty nasty. I just bought a Python with my exploration funds. I had equipped it as recommended by someone on Twitter, and I'll come back to that. So I was reasonably confident in how tough it was. I was reasonably confident that I knew how to clobber other ships, but I was still nervous as all hell when I went to do that mission, and I don't mind admitting it, because I'm not as young as I used to be. My reactions can be quite rubbish, and if I get confused, it's going to go horribly wrong. So, as the time ticked down to approaching the point in system where the mission targets have been detected, I was quite nervous. But that's great. I should be nervous. If the game's not making me feel something, then kind of what's the point? And that's kind of why I'm recording this, because I just thought to myself, do you know what? Yeah, it's kind of grindy, but I'm still sufficiently invested in this game. I still like it enough, and I'm still enjoying it enough that I actually care, and I'm nervous about whether or not I manage to complete a single mission in it, which is lovely. So anyway, long story short, found the mission targets. They weren't in a wing, which was a bonus. I proceeded to take out the 3 targets I was required to take out reasonably easily in my Python. I could have gone at Crate 2. I went for Python because, again, it's old school. And it was in the original game, so I thought I'd just go Python. Then what's happened to boas? Anyone know what's happened to boas? Comment if you know what's happened to boas. I'm sure boas used to be a thing as well. Great big ships. Possibly bigger than anacondas, I'm not sure. Anyway, I digress. Okay, yeah, it's a bit grindy. But anyway, I went back to the engineer, submitted the mission rewards, and got a little bit of the way towards unlocking him. And that's fine, because I didn't have to do it all in one go. Again, it was enough that I could submit some of the required materials, and that was fine. And the other bonus about the series system is there was a material trader there as well, so I was able to do a bit more engineering, having traded for more materials. And the thing is, the game is deep. There are also 2 alien factions, Guardians and Thargoids, in the game to date. I haven't even gone anywhere near dealing with them yet, but I think that's going to be another sort of level to it. And this game is still quite new to me because I haven't unlocked all the engineers. I haven't done Thargoids. I haven't done Guardians. I haven't gone to Sagittarius. I haven't gone to Colonia yet. I will get round to it ultimately. But it's just, it's nice to have something so familiar to get back into, which isn't sort of pressured. I can dip in, I can dip out, my ships are still there. I can build up my little fleet, and it's just nice to be able to sort of pootle around, and it is gorgeous. I've been running some videos and some static shots in the background to this, so you've got something to look at whilst I blather away. But you can see, it's I don't know if it's as beautiful as any of the other space games currently. I don't know if it's as up to date as anything else. But for me, this is the planetary landings aspect of it, whizzing around in a vehicle and the SRVs. It's just completely beyond what was possible when I first started it 30 odd years ago. Yes, God, I'm old, but even so, it's just gorgeous to look at, which is also relaxing. It's just nice. If you want to have a little pootle, if you want to have a little bit of a run around, that's great. And I do find it very, very relaxing, as I say, especially when I was exploring. It's very, very quiet. There's nobody else there, and you can just sort of be alone with your own thoughts, mooching along, scanning planets, landing on planets, gathering materials, bouncing around if it's low gravity, getting shot up kilometres in the air by geezers if that's your thing. It's just, there's just lots to do. Just like the original game, you can choose how you play it, and how you win it is entirely up to you. There are these big carrier class ships now that you can buy, which came out whilst I've been playing. One thing I wasn't late to the party for, but I see those from time to time, and you see a lot of them in the mission systems. And they're just these massive, massive, immense ships that the players can buy, and they can take their friends with them on these ships, jump, extremely large distances in them. And I want to come now to the community behind this, because it's apparent to me now that there has always been an elite community, one way or another. Whether or not it was obvious, there's always been one. And that community probably started in 1984 with people like me. And until the internet came along, it was probably difficult for us to sort of gather and make ourselves known to each other. But I know that there's now a convention called LaveCon, which I haven't been to because, as I say, I've only really sort of got back into it recently. But once this COVID malarkey's died down a bit, I'll definitely try and get to one, I think. And I have found the community to be incredibly supportive, incredibly patient with me. I ask some bonehead questions on Twitter on a regular basis. I always get replies. I equipped my Python on the basis of a reply I got in about sort of 30 minutes flat from someone who gave me a very, very straightforward guide to how to do it. Because I was just sort of looking at it thinking, well, I've got all these slots. What do I fill these slots with? I feel like if I'm not filling a slot, I'm doing something wrong. So someone just basically said, right, you put these on your biggest guns, you put these on your next guns down, make sure you've got some of these. And, a fair amount of it I had a reasonable idea of. But when you've never actually flown combat in this game before, you do need a little bit of guidance. So, you'll see from one of the videos within this video that I have had some success now on the combat front. So I'm kind of getting the hang of it. But I wouldn't take on a sort of a high threat mission. I think that would be a bad thing for me. But the community is terrific. There are some absolute genius YouTube videos out there. People like the Yamix just has me absolutely in tears because he's just so damn rude. He's just so damn rude, but it's hilarious. And I'm sure, he's clearly doing it completely intentionally, but I dare say that's probably very much him as well. And the thing is, whilst he is being hilarious, he's also being bloody informative because he tells it as it is, which is terrific. There's Down to Earth Astronomer, there's the Giraffe guy, Exigius, got some really good tutorials from Commander Exigius. I'm going to forget loads here. But basically, go out and have a look. There are loads and loads of YouTubers out there. The Twitter community is brilliant. They've helped to keep me sane. And they've also helped to remind me that it's absolutely fine to still be into Elite and be old. That's still a thing. You know, there is no age, there is no upper age limit on it. If you like it, bloody well do it. Please. Don't let anyone stop you doing it, because, you know, you're perfectly entitled to still like video games if you want to, you know? And it's just nice to see that, you know, there are people out there who share that sort of interest, who just like, you know, if they want to explore, they can just go and explore. I haven't been to the Soul system yet. I want to get into Soul. I've got some of the rank I need, not all of it, so I need to do that. There are just lots of things that, because I'm quite new to the game still, I've still got that sense of wonder about. I guess there are some sort of, you know, longer tooth commanders in this particular version of the game who are maybe sort of getting a little bit tired of certain things, or have basically done most things already. You know, I completely appreciate that. But I love the fact that they're still invested enough in the game to help people who haven't been playing it for long, like me, who are coming into it new. I mean, it was recently given away for free on the Epic Games website, and I think there was a big surge of new players off the back of that. And obviously, you know, my son's quite a new player. I mean, he's not that experienced in it yet, but he'll get to grips with it, and sometimes he'll come to me for help when he's not fortnighting around the place. But I think it's lovely that a game this old can still have a future, because, you know, the world and the computing in general has changed massively since the days when I first had a BBC B. Changed beyond all recognition, but, you know, certain core concepts and core values still shine through, and fundamentally, Elite Dangerous still engages people's imaginations. You know, they can still write their own narratives, and yet they can also still fly around in, you know, gloriously beautiful looking ships now. And most of the ships from the original game are in there in some way, shape or form. A few seem to have dropped out. I know that a few people would like to see some of the Frontier Elite 2 ships back in. I've seen a few comments to sort of references to Panther Clippers and things like that, which made me smile, because they are bricks. I'm not sure you get them in modern mail slots because they are complete bricks, but, you know, the Imperial Courier is in there, the Clipper's in there. So, you know, it's still very aware of its own lore and its own background, because now it has the opportunity, with the processing power and the graphics, to really sort of delve a bit deeper into its own universe. And bringing the first person element into it is very, very interesting, because I remember in the original novella, you know, the pilot did get out of his ship quite regularly, and trades were done kind of in person, you know, on the stations, and that was where the contracts were signed up to. So it wasn't all done remotely. So, you know, there is a massive sort of role-playing potential there for it, but I don't know whether they'd be trying to do too much with a single game, trying to do it like that. I remember that EVE Online kind of went down that road, and I don't really know if that really took off for them. I mean, I haven't been on EVE Online for many a long year now. I enjoyed it at the time. I think it was just before Elite Dangerous came out, and my machine could just about cope with it, but it was starting to get left behind. So I sort of left it behind, because, you know, life happens, and my time for things like that got decreased. But yeah, I do love Elite. I love Elite. You know, I've literally got the T-shirt. If I could buy Eagle Moss models of Elite ships, there's an idea. I'll get on Twitter. I'll mention that to them. They should do Elite ships in the Eagle Moss like they do for Star Trek and Battlestar Galactica. That would be epic, wouldn't it? All those in favour, comment below. That would be terrific, actually. Yeah, I'll mention that to them. So, yeah, I love that. So, yeah, I just love that, you know, one of the original creators is still heavily involved with it. I love that there are books about it. I love that people are creating content about it. I love that there is a community for it that's a really, really helpful, positive community. I mean, you know, there are people called fuel rats and hull seals who spend their personal time helping other people in this game out without getting reward for it other than the fact that they're doing it. And that's a glorious celebration of, the positive power that can come from human nature generally. I know it's only a little thing. I know it's only virtual, but you've still got to want to like helping people. Did that sentence make sense? Maybe. But you understand what I'm saying. Basically, it's not a community that's up its own backside. The people are generally out there to help people and to help their enjoyment of the game, as all these third-party sites are that are, telling you where to buy stuff from and, where the goodwills to scan are and all that sort of good stuff. It's just very sort of positive. It's just positive, which is nice, and we all need positive in our lives right now, I think it's fair to say. So the day is getting darker here and colder. We've nearly made it into 2021, which is great, and I'm going to keep on exploring the universe, I hope, in 2021. I'll come and do a bit more exploring, but I'd like to get all the engineers unlocked first, so I don't feel quite so far behind everyone else. And I'll keep on researching, and I will keep on chatting with other commanders, and I hope to meet some of you in real life one day. I think that could be very interesting. See how many greybeards there are. I'm not going to actually have a greybeard, I'm afraid. Not just yet. Not something I've cultivated during lockdowns. I'm cultivating the bald head quite well, but apart from that, I don't think that's really a thing you have to cultivate. That just happens. So, yeah. So that was a bit of a ramble. And I'm not going to apologise for it, because I knew it was going to be a bit of a ramble when I started out, and I did kind of warn you. If you haven't played Elite Dangerous, Xbox, PlayStation, PC, I believe it's coming. It'll be eminently playable on the next generation machines that have just come out now. As far as I'm aware, they're not planning to take it off Xbox Ones and PS4s. I think that's where they're up to, isn't it? And obviously PCs will be PCs forevermore. And yeah, so enjoy the game. Have a dabble with it. Bounce around in a Sidewinder. Just explore planets because you feel like it. Do whatever you like. You're free to do so. There is no storyline for you to follow. Just sandbox your way around it. See if you like it. If you don't, move on. If you do, stay. Find people to chat with. Have fun. So I believe the traditional sign off is an 07. That's the elite salute. If you see that, it does confuse newcomers quite a lot, but it's just it's like a person saluting. That's been around for donkey's years. And I think all that remains is for me to say, fly dangerously, commanders. Yes. So if you've got through to the end of this, thank you very much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed some of the videos and the stills as I've gone through. They're all just Xbox One captures, so that's kind of what you can expect from the game on the Xbox. And I will leave it there for you. Please have a look at some of my other videos. I was also into Babylon 5. A lot of the stations remind me of Babylon 5, which is one of the things that made me smile when I got back into this version of the game. Also, Lego ideas. If you're into Jerry Anderson, Space 1999, Eagle Transporter, doing quite well at the moment. It needs lots more support. Please support it if you'd care to. Thank you very much indeed. Old 80s cartoon intros, also a thing. 10 years old plus now. Ancient YouTube videos, teeny tiny things. I don't apologise for it. They were quite unusual at the time. And yeah, recorded off VHS tapes. Go and ask your parents. Or don't. You could be parents, so you won't need to. Right, I'm going to stop now because it's nearly 40 minutes long and I've rambled on long enough. And stay safe, everyone. And I will do subscribe to the channel as well. I believe that's also the thing you're supposed to say, isn't it? Yeah, subscribe to the channel. Thumbs up, likes, all that good stuff. All right, cheers, out.